Thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. With Trade, you can discover the freshest coffee from the nation's best local roasters. And the best part is, it's tailored to you and then delivered straight to your door. All you have to do is take a short quiz and they match you with your perfect cup of coffee. And if you're not happy with your first match, they send you something new, completely free. If you're like me, you love that first cup of coffee in the morning, and with Trade, you're getting the most flavorful and delicious coffee out there. This week, I'm drinking coffee from Common Voice, and these flavors never disappoint. Plus, they are perfect for sitting back and watching some Recollection Road. Trade makes drinking really good coffee at home so easy, so get yours today. Right now, Trade is offering my viewers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/recollection. Click the link in the description below. This offer won't last forever, so be sure to take advantage while you still can. Get started by taking the simple quiz at drinktrade.com/recollection, and let Trade find a coffee you'll love. That's drinktrade.com/recollection for $30 off. Make sure to use my link below so they know I sent you. The first Matchbox cars were produced by Lesney Products, an English company that manufactured die-cast toys. They named the small toys Matchbox cars because they were small enough to be carried around in a matchbox. The line of tiny cars actually began as heavy equipment, rather than cars. Tractors, cement mixers, and dump trucks eventually led to a variety of makes and models of everyone's favorite automobiles. Matchbox cars soon became the world standard in die-cast autos, giving kids of the 1950s an affordable car with real-life details. The biggest selling periodical of the decade was the TV Guide. In a nation separated by strong regional differences, network television programming blurred these distinctions and helped forge a national popular culture. By April 1952, more than 10 million households were tuning in to see the show I Love Lucy, and this was the first time in history that a television show had reached that many people. TV Guide entered the national scene in 1953 and piggybacked off of Lucy Mania. Their first issue on April 3, 1953, ran a cover featuring a photograph of Lucille Ball's newborn son. By the end of the decade, TV Guide became the most read and circulated magazine in the United States. An almost mandatory gadget for teenagers at the time, the pocket transistor radio, made its first appearance in 1954. By the late 1950s, the gizmos were everywhere. The Sony TR-610, which was released in 1958, was the first transistor radio to sell more than 500,000 units. The radio set the standard for transistor radios, and it originally sold for $49.95, which included a leather case, battery, and earphone. While on vacation in 1944, Edwin Land took a picture of his 3-year-old daughter, who promptly asked to see the photo. This technology did not exist yet, and 4 years later, Land introduced the first commercially viable instant camera, the Polaroid Model 95. Advertised as the picture-in-a-minute camera, this revolutionary device combined film exposure and processing into one unit. The company sold its first camera in Boston right before Christmas, and would soon become a behemoth in the camera business. Swanson salesman Jerry Thomas conceived the company's frozen dinners in late 1953 when he saw that the company had 260 tons of frozen turkey left over after Thanksgiving. Swanson changed our world forever when they introduced the first TV dinner back in 1954. They were such a big success that they ended up selling more than 10 million during the first year of production. As households were adding television sets in the 1950s, Swanson's TV dinners became the perfect companion, and they grew in popularity right alongside the television. The 1950s were the golden age of cigarette advertising. In 1950, Camel was number 1 in cigarette sales, with 98.2 billion cigarettes sold annually. The slogan, "More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette," became the tagline of Camel advertising up until 1952. Ads featuring the slogan were seen in a range of media, from medical journals and magazines to television commercials. The #1 brand of cigarettes also had one of the most memorable billboards ever, and it pumped real smoke rings over people in Times Square. During the first half of the 20th century, sneakers were worn mostly to play sports, but in the 1950s, kids began wearing them as fashion statements. Converse All-Stars made the mainstream leap when the classic black and white version became part of the young rocker look. Even more teens followed the fad after seeing James Dean in his Converse. Converse were so popular that they comprised 80% of all sports shoe sales in the 1950s. Prior to the invention of Ban Roll-On, the most common deodorant was Everdry, an aluminum chloride solution that was applied with cotton swabs. Besides being messy and taking forever to dry, Everdry also ate through your clothes. In the late 1940s, a new applicator was developed based on the newly invented ballpoint pen. In 1952, the company began marketing a new product that used this roll-on applicator under the name Ban Roll-On, and deodorant was forever improved. Today, recliners are popular additions to any living room, but in the 1950s, every dad wanted to come home from work and relax in a street slumber chair. These popular chairs were made in Cincinnati and came in both vinyl and cloth, and they had a separate matching footrest. Just by looking at these beautifully well-crafted chairs, you can see why they were the envy of the neighborhood. Pez candies had already been around for years, but the popular dispensers weren't available until 1948. The novelty of dispensing one piece of candy at a time was revolutionary, and it has been a familiar part of a kid's childhood since they added the character heads in 1955 and began marketing the candy to children. Santa Claus, Popeye, Mickey Mouse, and Donald Duck were among the first character dispensers, and big sellers during the 1950s. World War II made Zippo lighters legendary, with military personnel carrying their reusable metal lighters into battle. The popularity of Zippos grew even further once they returned home. With smoking being so pervasive in the 1950s, Zippos were considered the Cadillac of lighters. The durable and trustworthy lighters were advertised as windproof and appealed to both men and women, especially following the release of their Slim model in 1956, which was directly aimed at women. James Jones's debut novel, From Here to Eternity, was the best-selling book during the 1950s. Set in 1941, the novel follows a company of U.S. Army soldiers stationed in Hawaii as the attack on Pearl Harbor draws closer. The book was almost immediately made into an Oscar-winning movie, starring Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, Deborah Kerr, and Frank Sinatra. If you enjoyed this video, check out the description for links that help support the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching.